And here we go, right into another build. This is the second part of my HDPE project. I was working on a base, and so now I'm going to put something on that base. This is a completely scratch build kind of a thing. I'm working with a little gum container right there as kind of the base to build around the structure, I guess, to build around my base here. And on the top of that is a from my weed whacker, a little garden equipment. It has the plastic string. It wound it, so that was the spool for the plastic string. A credit card, well, not necessarily a credit card. It was a like a gift card that was expired, and then a gum container. And so that's what I used for my main structure. And I ended up gluing it down to the structure with construction adhesive. And so I'm drawing a line right around the sides, and I cut a piece out, like a door, out of the gum container, and I used the other piece of the gum container as kind of a barrier for this structure. So it was kind of a win-win. I didn't even think about using that until I kind of saw it fit perfect in that corner. And so this is, again, some liquid nails construction adhesive. I found that it works pretty well with this HDPE. Actually, it works well enough. And it also created kind of a thick, gooey kind of base that I could kind of transition really well. So I decided to use that as my main adhesive for this base. And so once we had that down, I kind of did this over the course of a couple days to let things dry. This is just a lot of random electronics that I have saved up. This was a roller from a printer that went bad on me. And so I kind of cut the roller out because it looked kind of neat, and salvaged a couple parts from that roller. And I'm using that as kind of a structural piece. An old model kit of an airplane fits pretty much perfectly for the roof of that building there. And a piece from my faucet. We replaced the faucet in our house, and so I kept that little piece, along with I think that was like a metal pen that I found while walking one day. That was just kind of a piece of a pen. And now we have sprues from a model kit that I'm kind of using as ladders and railing for the structure. I love to use these old sprues and to save them. They work really well. So we're just kind of figuring out what the railing is going to look like on this structure. Obviously, if we're going to have some people standing up there, you got to be OSHA compliant and have them be safe. And I tacked it in with some super glue, and then I think after the super glue I came in with some 5-minute epoxy. I may not have shown that on camera. This is going to be futuristic, I think. In my mind, it's kind of a sci-fi, cyberpunk shanty town, and so I wanted to kind of put a little bit of some sort of terminal in there. And so I had this little tiny circuit from electronics that I had, and so I kind of glued that inside that structure. And again, we're just kind of gluing on little bits to make it take away from that kind of garden tool thing and give it a little bit more building-like structure. Once I've done with that, I took some just some spackle. Any spackle you can get at a Home Depot or some home improvement store, and started to go to town working on the transition. I'm covering up those kind of grooves that the cap screwed onto so that it doesn't look like a cap. And I'm covering the majority of the structure actually in that spackle. A little bit of water just to kind of smooth it out once I'm done. And it ended up looking like kind of a mud pack. So it works for the shanty town really well. Gonna see some other stuff that we're doing, just evening out the ground and making the ground a little bit more interesting. Now I'm some white glue on the top there that looked kind of bare, and so I took some aquarium rock and just kind of threw some rock in there and glued them in. Then I kind of glued some rock down towards the bottom of the base as well. Just to kind of, again, break up the texture of everything and kind of give it some more organic feel. Instead of it looking like plastic, it's looking like dirt rock structure. And this is, again, ground coffee, just coffee from my morning coffee. I left it out in the sun to dry out, and it creates kind of a great texture. So another free thing. The majority of this stuff is kind of trash build. And after everything was said and done, and I've had everything glued together, got it all primed. I used a gray primer, and then I went in with the structure and just kind of a mustard yellow. It's kind of a dirty yellow from Com Art. Again, those colors from Com Art, I really do love those colors. So this is a little bit more of a dirty, kind of a darker yellow. Would almost describe it as a mustard yellow, and I'm painting the structure yellow. Not much to say about that. It's yellow. I came in with some orange on top of the yellow just to give it some more depth. And I figured, the orange might look, make it look a little bit more kind of a construction-ish looking hazard-like thing. This is, again, a post-apocalypse kind of cyberpunk shanty town that I had in mind. So just establishing my colors on that base, yellows and oranges. And I think the majority of it came out orange after all was said and done. Some soft dirt from that Com Art weathering pack to kind of go on the bottom there. And so I'm kind of starting to get into the base. I'm not worried about overspray because it's kind of a dirt color. And if the overspray goes, then great, because this is a post-apocalyptic kind of build. So it's not supposed to be clean. It's supposed to be dirty anyway. This is one of my favorite colors. It's kind of a detailed moss green. And that's where this structure really started to take shape, is when I started doing this darker green. And I'm not really spraying it in all the areas. Right now I'm starting to focus on just the shadows. So I've got my base colors down, and so I'm coming into the shadows to give it a little bit more depth with this detail moss green. And really went to town on top there. I think that moss green really came out really well on top with those rocks. And so I hit the rocks really hard with the moss green. They seem to look really good combined with the moss green and the dirt. Other than that, it was a relatively simple build. It was just kind of, the hardest part about this is just saving up the trash so that you can have it to bash this stuff. This is a smoke black, and so I'm taking some black to burn in the shadows a little bit darker and to kind of give it a little bit of a smoky kind of feel. And that really kind of takes the layers of colors one extra step. And I think after this black, it was just about done in terms of painting with the airbrush. As I said, these builds are really easy. It's just a matter of building up the stock. And so you always got to kind of be on the lookout for different pieces of plastic and interesting pieces of plastic that you can do. Just like this little electronic here that I masked off while I was painting. There's a perfect little kind of a console for a hacker to kind of get into, and a great little objective piece for the terrain. Then I came in with just a black wash because I wanted a little bit more kind of contrast in some of these rocks. And so with the black wash, I'm just burning in that detail a little bit more in certain areas. And it helps the piece kind of pop just that much more. And after that. Again, some more black wash just on the top there to kind of give it a little bit more of a gnarled kind of a look. But I really did enjoy this shantytown kind of build and hope to do a lot more. This is just kind of one of many. Also took some little, as you can see, some moss, and so there were some areas that had little gaps, and so I just filled those gaps with some floral moss and some ground cover, and it really kind of helped bring everything together on this this piece. So again, a simple piece. Hope you enjoyed the build. Hope it inspires you, and hope to do more of these in the future. So stay tuned and like and subscribe.